Okay, so as you can see here, it's all out of the box and it's kind of put together now. I have a separate microphone for my vocal, and then I have this running into my audio interface via instrument cables. So it's kind of a little bit of a weird setup here, but bear with me if I bump the camera or the mic. So as you can see, this thing is kind of distinctly categorized. You have your programming section, you have your arpeggiator, you have your glide section, your mod section, that's just modulation, pitch, and filter modulation. You have your oscillator section where you can kind of choose your, the meat and potatoes of your sound. You can choose the octave and you can choose the waveforms. You have your mixer section where you can layer your sounds. You have your oscillator mixer, your sub oscillator mixer, which is essentially a tone it's a square wave that plays one octave below whatever sounds you choose and whatever pitch you choose for oscillator 1. You have oscillator 2 mixer. You have your noise generator, which is pink noise on this. Then you have your feedback mixer, which is essentially distortion. It takes the signal and it routes it back into itself, and it allows you to kind of overload early on to kind of add that distortion. So that's an option there. Then you have your filter, which is a low pass filter. In classic Moog fashion, you can choose the 24 filter there, which is like a really extreme low pass filter, but you can choose in varying degrees of intensity how strong you want this to sound. And then you have your envelope generators, which is you have your filter envelope, and then you have your amplitude envelope, and then you have your output. So for the sake of this video, I'm not going to be demonstrating any patches. There are 256 on this unit, and if you're more interested in just patches, I'm going to leave a link to them in the description below. I'm making a separate video entirely for patches, but this video will kind of just be how to navigate this board. So I have a basic initialized patch loaded up right now, and I'm going to go over kind of how I would begin shaping a sound. It doesn't always make sense to go left to right, so hopefully this video brings some clarity to folks who are interested in kind of starting with basic synthesis. So this is a subtractive synthesizer in nature. Essentially, it allows you to choose multiple different waveforms, layer them, and then kind of remove frequency from them in multiple different ways to kind of shape a tone, for lack of a better description, that you're after. And so that's really what this is. Right now we have in the mixer section just oscillator 1 turned on, but if you want to turn on other oscillators, you can just click them on and you see the buttons will light up. But we're going to start with just oscillator 1, which is again the sound that you're hearing. So to start kind of choosing your sound, you have the option to move a waveform right here. So you got your triangle, you got your sawtooth, you got your square, and you got your pulse. And interestingly, on this unit, you can choose kind of little positions between them, which gives you serious control over your sound. And then you have your octave switch, which is measured in feet. It's a reference to the old pipe organs. How they achieve their depth. So let's say we want a, basic triangle right there. Or sorry, sawtooth. And then we choose 16 feet for our octave. If we're to now turn on the sub, it will generate a frequency a square wave frequency 1 octave below. And I'll just change the waveform so you can kind of see that this sub stays the same. It's the waveform that changes in the oscillator, not the sub. It's that 1 octave below square. Super fat and beefy sound, so it's like a classic Moog kind of tone. That sub, it's not an oscillator on its own, but it kind of functions as one. It helps to fatten up the low end. And then let's turn on oscillator 2 here. And then maybe we want to choose a higher kind of register tone there. So then we just kind of mix that in right there. That's, we can choose how loud we want that. Or we can, keep it very low. It's kind of up to you how you want. So far we've stacked 2 oscillators and we've kind of created a very harmonically rich frequency. So that's sort of the, bread and butter of choosing how to layer your tones. It's like really the most that you're gonna get into when you're first starting, but you can expand as you get more used to this device or more used to subtractive synthesis or so on. Hard sync is an interesting button because it makes sure that you're pretty much always in phase. So some of the analog imperfections are kind of, I don't know, reduced in this, but it creates a more stable tone. So that's interesting right there. Just a little quick overview. This is a duophonic synthesizer, so it's not actually a strict mono synth. By clicking dual mode, you're able to play 2 oscillators at once. So let's, so on and so forth. You can kind of choose that, and then we'll activate the noise one. Blend some noise into that, and then you have your, I'm keeping it off, but it's really good for percussive sounds and so on and so forth. And then the feedback distortion. So that's pretty dope. Maybe we're just gonna, we're happy with the sound, we want to move on. We'll go to the filter section next to kind of shape our tone. Maybe we want to create a bass. Oh yeah, we have an alright foundation to do that. So you just kind of start with this knob here and you pull it back, kind of cutting out some of those high-end frequencies. And that kind of gives you a decent bass foundation right there. There's not so much extreme harshness in the highs. So it's a bit more classical, sit in the mix a bit better. And then you have your resonance knob, which essentially it boosts the frequency exactly where your cutoff is. So say you're cutting at, let's say you're making a cut at everything above 15 kilohertz is gone. That will also kind of boost a little region in 15 kilohertz and create kind of a whistle. So sorry if that kind of was a bit harsh. And then you have your multi-drive, which essentially is post-filter distortion. So you have 2 distortion options here, saturation options internally. Pretty hardcore, and it's a lot more. I have a Mini Moog Model D, and I don't know, I just appreciate having kind of a lot more controls laid out here. Doesn't quite sound the same, but it's a pretty dope modern unit here. So that's our oscillators, our mixers, and our filters. So with the oscillators, you choose to layer your sounds. With your mixer, you kind of choose how they are balanced, and then with your filter, you can kind of choose resonant peaks, more distortion, and then your massive cutoff. Again, you can choose different slopes, and experiment with that. For the sake of this video, we're just going to go with the classic 24 there. And then we have, we'll do envelopes. So envelopes are interesting because there's multiple different kind of envelopes that you can employ. You have your filter envelope and your amplitude envelope. So you have your attack, decay, sustain, release, as is. So that's attack, how long it takes for the sound to kind of ramp up. Decay and sustain kind of work together. So sustain is the level that after you reach your peak in attack, it falls down to, and decay is how long it takes for that level to be reached. So let's set a sustain level. And how long will it take to decay to it? So you kind of have your kind of sound there, and then release is almost like a reverb. It's essentially when you lift up how long the sound rings out for. Do a duo one. So yeah, that's essentially that. Then you have your filter envelope, which is pretty much an envelope that controls the filter. Yeah, it starts off wherever you set the filter, and then it opens the filter up and it kind of returns to base. So and that's controlled by this right here. So they kind of talk to each other. It's the amount that your filter envelope responds. So this is the amount. Let's just turn it up for the sake of the example. And let's crank attack. You'll see that it will go from being closed to open. So you can kind of hear that happen. And then you have your decay, and then your sustain, and then release. They functionally work the exact same. And then you have other, like your loop, which once it meets its sustain point and it's kind of done doing its thing, it will just loop over and over again. You can kind of create some interesting tones. So let's just say we're happy with what we have now. We're going to move over to modulation, which is For some people, it's a bit of a tricky concept, but I think it's it's not that bad once you kind of understand it. Essentially, in a nutshell, you have your LFOs, which control your modulation. LFO stands for low frequency oscillation, and you have your, like, we know that sound is essentially sine waves and more complicated sine waves on top of them. That's called timbre. But for the sake of example, an LFO is a low frequency oscillating sine wave like this. Ooh. And the rate that it oscillates is the rate that it controls either, let's say, the filter or the pitch. So if I was to grab the filter and go like this, I'm moving back and forth. That's a pretty cool sound. A lot of people like kind of messing with the filter and having it open and close in that kind of way. And it would just be a pain to have to do that all the time. So a low frequency oscillator can be paired to the filter and open and close it based on the rate that we set. You use the mod wheel to control the mod 1 section, and then the mod 2 section is kind of independently controlled. Well, you can use a sine wave to control the LFO. You can choose multiple different, different waveforms, and then the rate right here. So let's just try, that's a triangle wave, but it's the closest to a sine wave that we have, and you can see that it's going off, on, so on and so forth. Let's make it a bit faster. And then let's make sure the modulation wheel is turned up, and let's change the filter amount. So this will control the filter for us. Let's just turn off the envelope generator to make this a bit clearer. So you can see that it's responding to that light there. Make it go a bit faster. So that's in a nutshell how that works there. You can also modulate pitch by changing this. It'll sync up to the same LFO. I don't really know. Pitch is not my favorite thing to modulate, but it's always up to you. And then your waveform will change how the modulation takes place. So then there you have your square, or that might be a pulse. No, it looks like a square. Let's kind of go on and off with it. And then you got a crazy waveform over here, which will sound crazy. So you can already kind of see how you could get pretty expressive with this. And I'm just doing a basic overview of modulation today. And then for modulation 2, you could set independent rates, right? And have a different kind of modulation happening at once. So we have this crazy sound right here. Let's change it to a sawtooth, just for the sake of demonstration. And then for this one, let's make this a triangle. And let's make it go a bit faster. Let's make it control filter as well, but maybe just a little bit less this time. So if I was to turn the mod wheel all the way down, we would just have mod 2. And if I turn the mod wheel up, then you have both. So it's cool because they can kind of talk to each other independently. Let's maybe mess with the pitch a tiny bit. No, let's not do that. I will make a separate video of a more in-depth overview of this eventually, but this is just kind of a jumping into it kind of thing. And then we have our arpeggiator section, which is and I'm gonna turn this down a tiny bit as well, just so it's not so in your face. Yeah, I'm probably fine with that actually. So the arpeggiator section is it essentially it arpeggiates for you. You can choose the rate of the arpeggiation, which is the order the notes are played in, and you turn it on by clicking down here. Here you can turn the pattern knob to kind of just determine the pattern you want, and then you can change how high the octave range is, and it'll play some, like say you're playing 3 notes, you're playing C, E, G, maybe the G will be an octave up, so on and so forth, or an octave down. Let's go there. Let's do 1 octave up, and let's play a C chord. So you can hear going, but it's doing it for me, and it's kind of playing it in the pattern. So if we increase the speed of the arpeggiator, and crank it. Maybe drop the range. And then the pattern. And if we hit latch, it will hold it. So that kind of gives us an interesting little thing to play around with. Arpeggiator is pretty cool. And if you want to kind of set your own tempo, you can hold the sync button and then it will light up and you can kind of tap yours in. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And, you know, it's nice if you want to kind of set your own rhythm, pair things up in any way you want, or there's some drums playing, you want to set yours to the drums. It's up to you. You can get very expressive with the arpeggiator, and yeah, I just find it pretty fun. And then we have the glide section. So I'm going to turn off the arpeggiator so we can hear it a bit better, but they kind of work nicely, is why I showed the arpeggiator first. Glide essentially lets notes slide to each other when you play them. So let's play this. And you can hear them go, they don't switch to each other fast as though this would. They go, or I guess they're kind of already doing that, but hopefully you can hear that. And that provides you a pretty cool, like a little transition. It's called portamento between each of your notes. And this changes how fast that takes place. So if I go like this, it will take quite a while to get up there. Or drop it and it will take not much time. So you kind of have to push it to a point that you can notice it and to a point that you're happy with, but that's glide. And if you're using your arpeggiator, just kind of get a glide in there. And then turn on the arpeggiator to some place that we're happy. The notes will not just go boom, 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 they'll go, like they'll slide to each other, right? So that's why it kind of makes sense to use them in conjunction if you want. Pretty cool. You can do some interesting little things like that. And yeah, so that's the arpeggiator, the glide, the mod section, the oscillators, the mixer, the filter, the envelope generators, and then you have your output, which you can kind of choose if you want, you know, your headphones to be louder, the headphone jack's there, or if you want your output to be louder for your monitors, which you plug in 1/4 inch to the side here, and then you got your mute button. So that's really the whole thing. I mean, there's more you can dig into. There's quite a bit more. Like I'll turn down the modulation here. Kind of make it chill out a bit. Turn off all this stuff. Turn on multi-drive maybe. You know, something that's pretty useful is the octave range thing, so you can kind of access more keyboard, although there's not much. Kind of gives you more, you know, expression to play anything you want. You can change it live. So that's pretty cool. And so I hope this kind of cleared up some of the questions that people might have when it comes to how to initialize your own patch. There's no right or wrong way to do it. You can completely mess around. I'm sorry for the strange setup. I had to reach over the entire time. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to go over a quick basic overview of this synthesizer. Just keep in mind, while I'm familiar with synthesis, I just got this yesterday. And so, I mean, it didn't take me all that long to kind of wrap my head around it. That's not to say it won't take you longer, or it will. You might figure it out in 2 seconds. But for the sake of an overview, that's, I guess, what I got. If you're interested in seeing some of the presets and what they sound like ran through effects, I will make a separate video, and I will probably record that like in 5 minutes. So I'll link it in the description below. Hopefully I can release these both simultaneously. And yeah, anyway, thank you for watching. I intend, because I also got a Mini Moog Model D, to do a kind of a shootout comparison between them both with as close to equal presets as I can kind of put together. I want the settings to be very similar. People often talk about how the Mini Moog Model D has that very rich low end, and I've been really enjoying the Subsequent 37. I want people to, I mean, it's $5,000. I'm in Canada. It's $5,000 cheaper here. I love the Model D. It's amazing. Like the low, it is a fantastic synthesizer. Don't get me wrong. And it's a classic. But I just want to give them a comparison. This is a big modern workhorse, and what it does very, 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 very well. So a quick opinion on that from me. I think that the Model D does sound a bit better, but this does a whole lot more than the Model D. And again, I'm just going to make a quick video on that soon too. So if you're interested, maybe just subscribe to the channel, and I will do my best to not take a billion years to do that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or concerns about this unit, just drop a comment, and I'll do my best to get back to you with something informative. And if you need, more overview video, just let me know what you'd like, and I'll make that for you too. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will be back soon. Okay, have a good day.